Okay, so today we're gonna dive into a really perplexing aviation mystery.
Yeah.
The 1978 disappearance of Australian pilot Frederick Valentich.
Right.
And you've shared
Yeah,
some incredibly intriguing material on this.
I did.
And I think our mission here is to really try to get into the core of what happened and why it continues to,
Yeah.
fascinate so many people.
Yeah, I think this isn't just about like a missing plane.
Right. Yeah.
It's really the circumstances surrounding his final flight and his communications
Yeah.
that are so bizarre. It
Yeah.
creates a real puzzle.
Okay, so let's get into some of the details here. Frederick Valentich, he was 20 years old.
Right.
At the time, had about 150 hours of flight experience. He held a Class 4 instrument rating,
Okay.
which basically means he was qualified to fly at night, but only in good weather conditions,
So VMC.
CMC exactly where he could still see.
Yeah.
His big dream was to become a commercial pilot, but it seems his academic performance in aviation exams was a little bit of a hurdle for him.
Okay.
He actually failed all 5 commercial license subjects twice.
Wow.
Despite this, though, he was involved in the Royal Australian Air Force Air Training Corps,
Okay.
even though he'd been turned down by the RAAF itself because of his educational qualifications.
So that paints a picture of someone really passionate about flying,
Yeah.
pushing forward despite these big obstacles.
Totally.
Like he had that instrument rating showing a certain level of skill, but those repeated failures
Yeah.
do suggest potential limitations
Yes.
or like maybe a need for more thorough preparation.
Yeah. I mean, you have to wonder if there was some kind of, I don't know, just some kind of gap in his, ability to learn.
Or was he like a hands-on learner?
Yeah.
Was he better in the, cockpit than in the classroom?
Totally. Yeah.
Which
So,
is interesting.
and on the evening of Saturday, October 21st, 1978, Valentich took off from Moorabbin Airport. In his Cessna 182L registered VHDSJ,
Right.
his stated flight plan was to King Island,
Okay.
which is about 125 nautical miles across the Bass Strait.
Right.
And this is where things start to get a little strange.
Okay.
He told flight officials he was going to King Island to pick up friends,
Mm-hmm.
but he told other people he was going there to get crayfish.
Mm.
And investigations later revealed that neither of these reasons seemed to be true.
Wow. So that's right off the bat, like one of the first big question marks.
Yeah.
Why these different accounts about his destination?
Yeah. Was he trying to hide the real reason for the flight? Was it just casual misdirection?
Yeah.
It definitely adds kind of a layer of, suspicion to what should have been a pretty routine flight.
For sure.
And to make things even more peculiar, Valentich didn't inform King Island Airport of his intention to land there,
Hmm.
which was against standard procedure.
So no hits up.
No,
Showing up
yeah.
unannounced.
Yeah, which is a standard safety measure, ensures the destination is aware of incoming traffic and can respond appropriately,
Yeah.
in case of delays or emergencies or whatever.
Right. Absolutely.
So he's undertaking this flight with this questionable purpose and not even letting his destination know he's coming.
Right.
Then around 7:06 p.m. AEST, things take a very unsettling turn.
Okay.
He radios Melbourne Flight Service,
Right.
reporting an unidentified aircraft following him at 4,500 feet.
Okay.
Air traffic control responds. There's no known traffic in that vicinity.
That's when it goes from like a normal flight to like,
Yeah.
whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
He's got enough experience to be flying at night.
Right.
He's recording something completely unexpected.
Yeah.
And the fact that air traffic control confirms no other aircraft
Yeah.
really adds weight to his report
Totally. Or at least to the fact that...
or his belief.
to his belief.
Yeah, he was really seeing something.
Yeah, and his initial description of this unknown aircraft is pretty detailed. He says it's large. It's illuminated by 4 very bright landing lights. And it passed about 1,000 feet overhead at high speed.
Yeah.
He couldn't determine what type of aircraft it was.
Right.
And then his reports get even more concerning.
Okay.
He mentions the aircraft is approaching him from the east, which suggests it was actively maneuvering.
Yeah.
He even wonders aloud if the other pilot is purposely toying with him.
Oh, wow.
That detail about being toyed with is
Yeah.
just so striking.
It implies like a deliberate interaction.
Yeah.
Almost like a playful
Yeah.
or even threatening.
Yeah.
This is not a typical close call.
Right.
This suggests intent.
Yeah. And he then reports the aircraft is orbiting above him. And he describes it as having a shiny metal surface and a green light.
Okay.
This green light becomes a recurring and significant detail as things unfold. Following these observations, Valentich reports he's experiencing engine problems.
Oh, no.
Then comes the truly chilling transmission. When asked to identify the aircraft, Valentich radios back, it's not an aircraft.
Oh.
That phrase, it's not an aircraft, is like the crux of this whole mystery.
Yeah, it suggests that whatever he was seeing defied his understanding of aviation.
Totally.
It wasn't a passenger plane, a military jet, anything he could identify as like belonging in the sky.
Totally. And that shift in his language from reporting an unidentified aircraft to it's not an aircraft is huge.
What could possibly prompt that statement from a pilot in flight?
And the very last we hear from him are unidentified noises described as metallic scraping sounds.
Oh, wow.
Before all contact is lost at 7:1 p.m. AEST, just silence.
I can't even imagine.
It's just gone.
What that must have been like for air traffic control to hear that and then nothing.
I know, and the metallic scraping sounds just add another layer of unease.
For sure. Were those sounds from his own aircraft?
Yeah.
Maybe linked to the engine trouble, or were they connected to this object?
Right.
The timing is suspicious.
Yeah. So, of course, what followed was a massive search effort. Ocean-going ships and RAAF Lockheed P-3 Orion aircraft, which is designed for maritime patrol. 8 civilian aircraft meticulously combing over 1,000 square miles of the Bass Strait.
Wow.
Despite this extensive search, no trace of Valentich or his Cessna was ever found.
Nothing.
The search was eventually called off on October 25th, just 4 days later.
The complete lack of wreckage.
Yeah.
That's a critical point.
I know.
In most aircraft accidents, you'd expect some debris field.
Right.
The fact that nothing was recovered after such a big search raises questions about what really happened.
Yeah, and the official investigation by the Australian Department of Transport concluded that they couldn't determine the cause of Valentich's disappearance, but it was presumed fatal.
Right.
5 years later, in 1983, an engine cowl flap from a Cessna 182 was found washed ashore on Flinders Island. The Bureau of Air Safety Investigation did look into whether this part could have drifted from the area where Valentich disappeared, and they noted that it did come from a Cessna 182 within a serial number range that included Valentich's aircraft.
That's interesting, but it doesn't really give us much, does it?
No, it suggests that the aircraft may have broken apart at some point.
Right.
But the fact that it was the only piece of confirmed wreckage found after so long leaves a lot of room for speculation.
Yeah, tons.
So as you can imagine, over the years, a multitude of explanations have been proposed.
Right.
Let's start by looking at some of the more skeptical viewpoints, ones that try to explain this within the realm of known phenomena.
Yeah.
Officials at the time suggested that Valentich might have become spatially disoriented.
Okay.
Imagine flying over a flat, featureless ocean at night.
Right.
If your inner ear gets confused,
yeah,
maybe by a subtle bank you didn't consciously register,
yeah,
you might feel like you're level even when you're slightly tilted. Right.
Your instruments could confirm this.
Yeah.
But if you trust your senses more, you might try to correct what feels wrong, actually making the situation worse.
Yeah.
And potentially leading to a dangerous situation.
Right.
They speculated he might have seen reflections of his own aircraft lights or lights from a nearby island on the water, mistaking them for another aircraft, especially if he was flying upside down due to disorientation.
The disorientation theory.
Yeah.
It's a common consideration in aviation incidents, especially with less experienced pilots flying at night or in challenging conditions.
Right.
Spatial disorientation can be incredibly deceptive.
Yeah.
Leading pilots to completely misinterpret their aircraft's attitude and external visual cues.
Yeah.
However, the complexity and the level of detail in Valentich's reports, his descriptions of another aircraft, its specific movements, and that green light make a simple case of disorientation seem less likely.
Yeah, less likely to account for everything. But we can't dismiss it entirely.
Right.
It's possible.
Another theory that's been put forward is that Valentich may have actually staged his own disappearance.
Okay.
His Cessna 182 had a fuel capacity that would have allowed for a much longer flight than just the trip to King Island.
Right.
Around 800 kilometers or 500 miles in total range.
Yeah.
It's also been pointed out that his aircraft was never picked up on radar near Cape Otway. which was his last reported location.
Right.
And there were even unconfirmed reports of a mysterious light aircraft landing near Cape Otway around the same time.
So the stage disappearance theory, it plays on those inconsistencies we talked about, the different stories about his purpose, the lack of radar confirmation, the Cessna's long fuel range provided the opportunity to fly much further. Those reports of a light aircraft landing nearby are interesting. But this theory struggles to explain the detailed and increasingly panicked radio transmissions and his descriptions of the other aircraft. If it was a hoax, it was a really elaborate and fatal one.
Then we have Brian Dunning's theory,
Okay.
which brings in a fascinating cultural element. He connects Valentich's radio conversation to that really popular movie at the time, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, interesting.
Dunning suggests that Valentich, maybe fascinated by the UFO craze, might have been trying to imitate a scene from the movie for fun, maybe even deliberately flying in circles to create a radar anomaly.
Oh, wow.
The key insight here is how cultural context and suggestibility could influence perception and behavior. However, this prank, according to the theory, went horribly wrong, leading to disorientation and a crash.
That's a really interesting theory. It considered like the psychology and the culture of the time.
Totally.
Close Encounters definitely had a huge impact on the public imagination about UFOs. Dunning's theory offers this psychological explanation, suggesting this young pilot might have engaged in a very risky prank that ended tragically.
It ended badly.
And that reported similarity to the movie dialogue. That's a point worth considering.
And then there's the tilted horizon or graveyard spiral theory.
Okay.
This one is championed by James McGaha and Joe Nickel. They propose that Valentich, as a relatively inexperienced pilot, may have been deceived by what's known as a tilted horizon illusion. Essentially, in the absence of clear visual references, like flying over a dark ocean at night, a pilot's inner ear can mislead them, creating a false sense of level flight even when the aircraft is slightly banked. If the pilot then tries to correct what feels wrong based on their senses, they can actually tighten the bank and enter a downward spiral.
Oh, wow.
They argue that the G-forces experienced in a tightening spiral could explain Valentich's report of rough engine idling due to decreased fuel flow. And their explanation for the stationary overhead lights is really interesting.
What is it?
They suggest these were likely the planets, Venus, Mars, and Mercury.
Oh, wow.
Along with the bright star Antares. Which would have appeared consistent with his description from his perspective in a spiraling aircraft.
That's really interesting.
It's a purely aeronautical explanation for a lot of the seemingly unusual aspects.
The graveyard spiral is well documented. It's a very dangerous hazard, especially in low visibility. The misinterpretation of those bright celestial bodies as another aircraft due to disorientation, that's plausible. It does a good job of trying to reconcile his observations with known human factors and astronomical events.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have the ufological viewpoints. These explanations revolve around the idea that a UFO was involved, either destroying Valentich's aircraft or perhaps abducting him. Proponents of this often point to anecdotal reports from individuals who claim to have seen an erratically moving green light in the sky around the time of his disappearance. And that he was seen in a steep dive, linking this to the green light he mentioned.
So the UFO explanations really focus on those unexplained elements. It's not an aircraft, the green light. But it's important to remember that these often rely on anecdotal evidence and interpretations that aren't always backed up by facts.
It is interesting to note, though, that the Mount Stromlo Observatory recorded a significant meteor stream on the very night of Valentich's disappearance. With reports of around 10 to 15 sightings per hour, this natural phenomenon could potentially account for some of the unusual lights.
Meteor showers are a natural thing. They can produce those bright lights. And it can be easily mistaken. Especially by an untrained observer or someone who's already thinking about UFOs.
Exactly. And then there's the claim made by Ground Saucer Watch, which is a UFO research group. They brought forward photos supposedly taken by a plumber named Roy Manifold on the day Valentich disappeared. They claimed these photos showed a fast-moving object emerging from the water near the Cape Otway Lighthouse.
Okay.
And they described it as a bona fide unknown flying object
Right.
that had cloud-like vapor or exhaust residue trailing behind it.
So this introduces the idea of physical evidence.
Yeah.
Like photographic evidence.
Yeah.
But if the photos aren't clear,
Right, they weren't clear enough.
it's tough to say anything for sure.
Right.
We need more.
Yeah, so to recap, we have this young pilot
Yeah.
vanishes over the Bass Strait after reporting a bizarre encounter with something he couldn't identify. He's experiencing engine trouble. And then he utters those chilling last words, "It's not an aircraft."
It's not an aircraft.
A massive search effort yields nothing conclusive.
Wow.
And the official investigation ends without a definitive answer.
So we're left with this huge range of theories.
I know.
From human error and natural phenomena to claims of UFOs.
Right. And the skeptical explanations they offer grounded interpretations based on well-understood aviation principles, potential psychological factors, and documented astronomical events.
Right.
The UFO viewpoints, on the other hand, they tend to focus on those anomalous aspects of Valentich's report and the various alleged sightings, proposing explanations that venture into the realm of the unknown.
The unexplained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So considering all this information, what aspects of this mystery do you find most compelling or raise the most questions?
I think for me, it's the human element.
Yeah.
That young pilot's final words.
Yeah.
It's not an aircraft.
It's haunting.
It really is.
Is it the technical visibilities of aircraft malfunction? Or misinterpretation of sensory input? Or is it that allure of the unknown that keeps this case alive in our imaginations?
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
We love a good mystery.
We do?
And this one is a classic.
It is. It's an event from 1978 that continues to spark debate and really challenge us to consider the boundaries of our understanding when we're confronted with something that defies easy explanation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The disappearance of Frederick Valentich is a powerful reminder of how easily we can go from the explainable to the unexplained.
Right.
This single event has generated so many interpretations.
Right.
Each one trying to fill the void left by the lack of answers.
Totally.
And it invites us to keep exploring the possibilities.
Yeah.
However improbable they might seem.
It's a good reminder to keep an open mind.
I think so.
About what might be out there.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
See ya. Bye.